For 80 years, the United States told the world that nobody owns the Strait of Hormuz. Last month, it published a price list. So the 20% is not charged to Iran. Iran is blockaded. It cannot ship anything. The bill goes to America's own allies. The reaction that mattered did not come from Tehran. Gasoline has never cost this much in the United States in the middle of August. Trump asked Americans to accept the cost. Remember that when you have to pay a little bit more, he said. And when a government can no longer give something away, it starts selling it. Be careful which argument you make normal in Hormuz. Somebody will quote it back to you in a different strait. For 80 years, the United States told the world that nobody owns the Strait of Hormuz. Last month, it published a price list. In the middle of July, Trump posted that his country would from now on be known as the guardian of the Hormuz Strait. As a matter of fairness, he said, it would be reimbursed at 20% on all cargo shipped. He put it more plainly on Fox the same day. Keep the strait, probably run it, and get paid for it. 20% of the value of the cargo. There is a second half to that post. The blockade, he said, stops only Iran's ships and Iran's customers. Every other country gets fair and open use of the strait. So the 20% is not charged to Iran. Iran is blockaded. It cannot ship anything. The ships that would pay are Saudi, Emirati, Kuwaiti, and Qatari, countries that host American bases and buy American weapons. The bill goes to America's own allies. Those countries have not paid to reach open water since 1945. That was the arrangement. The Navy kept the sea open for everyone, and the world used American money, held American debt, and lived by American rules. Washington has now named a number. And once there was a number, its customers began looking at what else was available. I will come back to who they are. Then, on Friday, in Garden City, New York, Trump told a room of police officers that once Iran is beaten, he will declare the Hormuz Strait a territory of the United States. It basically already is, he said, because no ships get through unless Washington wants them to. The strait runs through Omani and Iranian waters. Nobody owns the right to pass through it. That is the entire rule, and it is why there is no legal path to what he described. Now look at what the claim cost him. For a year, Washington has called Iran's tolls piracy, on the grounds that no country owns passage through a strait. That argument is correct. Keeping it true is most of what the American Navy is for. Say, the strait is yours because your warships sit in it and you have joined Iran's argument. Straits can be owned. You are only arguing about the deed. He said something else earlier in the summer, and it is stranger than any of it. We've covered that before. ABC asked whether he objected to Iran charging tolls. He answered that there might be a joint venture, a shared toll booth with Tehran. Hold that thought too. Some of you will say this is loose talk and not policy. Andreas Krieg at King's College London told Al Jazeera the toll announcement looked improvised, and about the wording he is probably right. The pressure behind it is not improvised though. It is physical, and it showed up this weekend. The aircraft carrier George Washington is leaving the Pacific to take over from the Abraham Lincoln in the Gulf. That leaves the Western Pacific without a single American carrier. China ran exercises near Scarborough Shoal this month. Compare that with the last big war in the Gulf. In 1991, America sent 6 carriers out of a fleet of 15. In this war, it has managed 3 at once, briefly, out of 11. The old promise was to keep every sea lane open for everyone and at no charge. That promise is not being dropped because somebody changed their mind about it. It is getting too expensive to keep handing out for free. And when a government can no longer give something away, it starts selling it. The reaction that mattered did not come from Tehran. On the 17th of August, in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Pakistan signed a joint defense agreement. An attack on one counts as an attack on all three. That is NATO's wording. Between them, they field nearly 1.5 million troops and spend more than $120 billion a year. Pakistan is the only Muslim country with nuclear weapons. Turkey has NATO's second biggest army. Washington was not in the room. The Atlantic Council is a mainstream Washington institution, not a critic of American power. It read the pact as a sign that Riyadh has stopped chasing an American guarantee of the kind NATO members get. It also said the pact is not a rejection of the American partnership, and most coverage has missed that half. Saudi Arabia is not switching sides, it is buying a second policy as a backup. The American system does not break when Saudi Arabia turns against it. It breaks when Saudi Arabia stops having to choose it. Empires rarely lose a client in one dramatic moment. They stop being the only option first quietly, while everybody is still officially friendly. That agreement took close to a year to negotiate. So it was already being written before the toll was announced. The doubt came first. The price tag only confirmed it. Protection was never the product. Think about electricity. You don't wake up and work out whether the grid is actually worth paying for this month. You don't price alternatives or call around. It is simply there, and because it is there, you spend your attention on something else. That is what the American order sold to its allies, not the ships themselves, but the freedom to stop thinking about the problem and build ports, contracts, and whole economies on the assumption that the water stays open. For 80 years, the product the United States sold was not protection. It was not having to ask. A service works differently. A service has a number on it. Once there is a number, every customer has to do sums he never did before. Is this worth 20%? Could someone else do it cheaper? What happens if I say no? The fleet is still there. The habit of not shopping around is what is disappearing. Gasoline has never cost this much in the United States in the middle of August. A shipping data firm counted 14 ships going through Hormuz on Tuesday. At that same event on Friday, Trump asked Americans to accept the cost. Remember that when you have to pay a little bit more, he said. Diesel moves the freight. The freight is in the grocery bill, and heating season starts in about 10 weeks. Canadian viewers are not outside this because crude sells at a world price, not domestic. The pump is proof of something bigger. Washington is trying to fund its position twice over. Once from its clients through a toll, once from its own voters at the pump. The old model promised cover to everyone and swallowed the cost quietly. That part has stopped working. The joint venture comes back now because it may be the most important thing Trump said all summer. If Washington and Tehran can sit down and discuss splitting a toll on the same water, then both governments already agree on the basic question. That strait has an owner. They are haggling over the share. That agreement is a precedent, and precedents get borrowed. There is another strait, about 100 miles across, where a much larger navy operates every day and calls the surrounding water its own internal business. It is the Taiwan Strait. The United States has spent decades saying that claim is invalid. Be careful which argument you make normal in Hormuz. Somebody will quote it back to you in a different strait. For decades, America answered that claim with presence. There is no American carrier in that ocean right now. Nobody in this had to be stupid for it to happen. A president who has not found a cheap way out of a war looks for a way to make the war pay for itself. Gulf governments that keep getting hit want insurance that does not run through one distant capital, and a navy stretched over 3 oceans sends the ship it has to the loudest fight. America is still quite powerful. That was never the question. The system ran on everybody, assuming Washington would act before they had to ask what it cost. Once you ask what the protection costs, you have already started asking who else sells it. That is a wrap for today, my friends, and I will see you next week.